The meeting of the Monday, June 10th, 2024 is called to session. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
All school board members are present and accounted for.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda, we have recognitions. Dr. Ferris will present the recognitions for the Carmel High School Presidential Scholar, the 2024 Governor's STEM Team Award, and the Cyber Patriot Team. Dr. Ferris.
How are you? Good evening, Dr. Beresford, members of the board. It is my pleasure and honor to be here for Carmel High School staff on behalf of them to recognize some very, very special students. I want to start and is Claire, are you here? Front row. Let's go. Come on up here, Claire. Didn't even see you. I want you to be up here so you can blush a little bit when I read these things about you. The United States Presidential Scholars Program was established in 1964 to recognize and honor some of our nation's most distinguished graduating high school seniors. Each year, up to 161 students are named as presidential scholars, and it is one of the nation's highest honors for high school students. Claire who I've known a long time from Town Meadow, Creekside, and a graduate of Carmel High School, was among 5,000 candidates of nearly 4 million U.S. students expected to graduate this school year. All of those qualified, 5,000 qualified based upon their SAT and ACT exam scores. Candidates were then asked to complete an extensive application where their academic success essays, school evaluations, and commitment to community service and leadership were reviewed. One young woman, and one young man from each state. Okay, so only 2 in the state of Indiana are selected as presidential scholars. And obviously, I am excited to share that Claire is the female winner for the state of Indiana. Congratulations, Claire. Look at that. So on behalf of Carmel High School, we're so proud of you. You know that, and we know you're prepared to do great things. So before you leave and go shake hands, I want you to tell everybody where you're headed to and what you plan to do next year and the years ahead.
Thank you, everyone. I'm planning to go to Columbia University next year, and I'll be majoring in economics philosophy.
All right, next up we have the 2024 Governor STEM Award, and I would like to ask Alexandra Yang to come forward. And I'm going to read a little bit about you too. Okay. Each year, Governor Eric Holcomb and the Indiana Department of Education select 4 students across the state of Indiana as members of the Governor's STEM team. This prestigious award recognizes outstanding high school students who have demonstrated exceptional talent and accomplishments in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math. Or I should say, or math, one for each area. It is my honor to recognize Alexandra Yang as the 2024 Technology Member of the Governor's STEM team. I would like to quote this from the Governor's website. Alexandra, a senior at Carmel High School, shines brightly in the realm of STEM. With a perfect math SAT score and a near perfect SAT composite score, she has conquered AP courses and has received accolades from national competitions like USA Computing Olympiad and AFA Cyber Patriot. She has served as an intern at the University of Virginia's Biocomplexity Institute and a contributor to Harvard's Visual Attention Lab. As the first youth representative to be inducted into the National Girls Collaborative Project Executive Board of Directors, Alexandra hopes to continue to open doors of opportunities for women and girls to participate in STEM. Congratulations, Alexandra.
Okay, thank you everyone so much, and thank you so much to Dr. Ferris for the acknowledgement. Next year, I'm going to Stanford University to study computer science and business.
And our final recognition for high school this evening is our 2024 Cyber Hounds. So those Cyber Hounds, go ahead and come on up. We'll have you introduce yourselves here in a few minutes. Not minutes, 1 minute. It's not that long. Competing in the Air Force Association Cyber Patriot National Youth Defense Competition, this cybersecurity team has stood out among over 3,000 other teams in the division across the nation and the globe. After their semifinal round in January earlier this year, where they placed 8th in the nation, they earned a trip to nationals for the 2nd year in a row. The National Youth Cyber Defense Competition took place in March in Washington, D.C., where the Cyber Hounds competed against the other top 12 open division teams in the nation, representing states all the way from Virginia to California. The team represented Indiana very well on the national stage, winning the Boeing Cyber Physical Systems Challenge for a 2nd year in a row and earning a perfect score. Each of these members, obviously, and we're missing a few, right, tonight? 2 tonight. So we have several of the representatives. I also want to recognize our coach, back here hiding that didn't want to say anything. I'm going to embarrass her. Carrie Anderson for all the work that she has done. Congratulations. Thank you for everything you've done to represent Carmel High School. This is something that we've kind of started to dabble in that is new, and you guys have laid a great foundation, legacy that will last, I know, for many years to come. So thank you for that and sharing your talents with us and your brains. And now we'll have you share where you're headed, each of you. And no one's coming back, right, to Carmel High School? Just checking. No junior. Okay, I meant juniors. You know, we're not keeping you. All right.
Thank you, everyone. I will be going to Purdue University for computer science.
I did not say. Will you say your name,
David Rakoven.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sid. I will be going to Purdue as well to study computer science.
My name is Kevin. I'm also planning on going to Purdue University for computer science.
We're going to have a good team.
Our next recognition this evening is the Avant Blue Team Award. Mr. McMichael.
Thank you. We're honored to receive this award, and our technology team is certainly most deserving. The board and the public may not be aware, but we have one of the best technology teams in the state. That's not just me saying so because I work here. They've most recently been recognized, and they earned a Trusted Learning Environment seal for creating a robust cybersecurity plan. And this award is just the most recent recognition of excellence. So I'd like to introduce Brittany Goodpaster and Pete Williams with Avant Blue, who will present the award.
Thanks. My name is Pete Williams. Board members, Dr. Beresford, assistant superintendents, thank you for your dedicated service to the students in our community and allowing me to present an award tonight. I serve Butler University as Chief Information Officer and as co-founder of the company Avant Blue. I'm joined by Brittany Goodpaster, who is an executive leader at Avant Blue as well. At Avant Blue, we established Avant Blue at Butler University with the mission of reducing barriers to technology adoption in education. Today, I'm here to recognize a team that has demonstrated extraordinary leadership and innovation, significantly enhancing student learning and community engagement. The achievement of this team, the achievements are nothing short of spectacular. The candidates for this award were evaluated based on several key categories: effective leadership, community building, innovative use of technology, impact on learning, and public private sector partnership. This team serves as an exemplary model for all other school districts to follow. Board members, you have a very high achieving and dedicated technology group delivering outstanding results. And I would say best in the state, best in the country. They're an example to behold. It's my distinct honor to present the Indiana CTO Council's 2024 Avant Blue Team Award to the Carmel Clay Schools Technology Department, led by Krista Cloud.
Next, we will recognize the Carmel Clay School Support Staff Member of the Year, Dr. Herrera.
Thank you and good evening. I have the opportunity to present this year's 2024 Support Staff Member of the Year. I'm excited to announce Carol Fitzgerald as this year's winner with over 40 nominations from staff and community members. Carol, if you'll come on up. Carol is a media clerk at Clay Middle School, where she has served for the past 25 years before deciding to retire this year. Carol is known for creating a welcoming environment for both students and staff. She fosters a love for reading, including book clubs, author visits, and literacy workshops. One staff member shared, "Carol shows up every day with a smile on her face and will be sure to put a smile on your face when visiting the Media Center." Carol is a representation of all things great about Carmel Clay Schools. Please join me in celebrating Carol on this well-deserved honor.
Our next recognition is the Carmel Clay Schools Teacher of the Year, Dr. Ostrike.
Good evening, President Coquet, Dr. Beresford, and members of the board. At this time, I'd like to announce to you our Stephen A. Backer, Carmel Clay Schools Teacher of the Year, Creekside Middle School STEM teacher, Mrs. Barbara Glenesk. Congratulations, Barbara. Each year, our Teacher of the Year selection committee, made up of teachers, administrators, as well as our Carmel Education Foundation Executive Director, Jen Penix, meets to go over this year's 549 nominations for Teacher of the Year across the district. I love the process here in Carmel Clay Schools because our Teacher of the Year nominations are open to everyone in the community, parents, teachers, administrators, students. And Barbara, out of all of the nominees, is our 2024 CCS Teacher of the Year, which she will now move on to the state competition to go up against the Teachers of the Year in all of the other districts in the state. And we think Mrs. Glenesk is going to do very well. What do you think? Yes. At this time, I'd like to read a little bit from one of the nominations. Barbara received numerous nominations for this award, but I'd like to read a little bit so you get a feel for Barbara in the classroom. Mrs. Glenesk is an amazing STEM and robotics teacher. She advances the STEM curriculum and the VEX robotics program. She brings excitement and curiosity to the students in her STEM classroom and makes learning fun. In the STEM courses, she uses ordinary materials to teach students how to answer scientific questions. This year, she taught Project Lead the Way coursework to help students expand their problem-solving skills. These additions are invaluable for this generation of students. She also restored an opportunity for students to explore STEM through the Robotics Club. This club has grown, and now there are over 100 students who participate in the club. Under her leadership, she offers an opportunity for students regardless of their experience. The Robotics Club allows students to explore the world of building a robot or challenging themselves to compete at tournaments. She has gone above and beyond to not only advance students' imagination in the curriculum, but to offer students to explore their interest in STEM through robotics. Please join me one last time in recognizing and celebrating our Teacher of the Year, Barbara Glenesk. And at this time, Barbara, if you'd come up. As a side note, as Barbara's going up, I received a call after she was named Teacher of the Year from her mom, who is with us today, who I taught with in Washington Township for many years. And so we're glad that the whole family is here with us this evening. So thank you.
We will now take a brief break. For those of you who are here for recognitions and were wanting to leave, we will leave a few minutes for that. Per Board Bylaw 0167.3, speakers will be placed in Group 1 and Group 2. Those in Group 1, which consists of CCS students, CCS parents or guardians, CCS employees, and Carmel residents, will be permitted to speak first, followed by participants in Group 2. The order of speakers will be determined by random drawing with our lovely bingo wheel. As a reminder, comments at workshop sessions must be on an agenda item. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name, group affiliation, if applicable. Comments may not reference specific corporation employees, patrons, or students. Comments shall be directed to the board. No person may address or question individual board members. The school board will not act on or respond to questions or comments made during public comment, but will take them under advisement. The numbers for the speakers will be placed in the basket, and Dr. Ostrike will call out 2 numbers at a time. The first will speak, and the second will be on deck. When your name is called, please go to the microphone and state your name for the records. Remember, you have 3 minutes to speak, and we have a total of 30 minutes for public comment. I did also want to note that one of our items on our agenda is a high school book. So keep in mind that some of the audience that watches our board meetings when they are sent out via email may be younger than high school level. Dr. Ostrike, let's get started.
First, we have number 7, followed by number 9.
Number 7 is Christina Wheeler. You are up to speak first. And on deck is Amber Davis.
Thank you, Madam President and board members. My name is Christina Wheeler. I am the parent of a CCS student. I want to encourage you to approve the recommendation of your review panel on keeping the book, All Boys Aren't Blue, on the shelf at Carmel High School. I know many times that people take select excerpts from various books to try to show that they are obscene or inappropriate for certain school age students. That is the law in Indiana. I am an attorney in Indiana. My undergraduate degree is in elementary education. I have an Indiana State teacher's license, which is currently inactive. I trust our teachers. I trust our media professionals who have often advanced degrees in library science. I trust our panel's careful and considerate review of this. I have never once in my 18 years as a parent of Carmel Clay Schools seen a teacher or a librarian want a student to read something that was inappropriate. I'm also aware that any parent that is concerned about any book their child is reading, whether it's in the library or as part of a curriculum, has the opportunity to raise those concerns. And I have never seen a CCS teacher refuse a request for a substitute book for any child at any grade. I also want to read to you just a few quotes from this book, since that seems to be a game some play, to show to you its importance. The quotes are as follows. The journey to self-acceptance is difficult, but ultimately liberating. Strength comes from within, and no one can take that away from you. Don't let society define your worth or dictate how you should live. You are enough as you are. There is strength and vulnerability in sharing our stories with others. I encourage you to allow this story. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber Davis. You are up.
On deck, we have number 1.
Number 1 is Cindy Black. You are on deck.
Hello, my name is Amber Davis, and I am the parent of 2 kids currently in Carmel Clay schools. We moved here over 11 years ago for the excellent reputation of our school system, and today it's been brought to my attention that a member of our community wants to remove a particular book from our school libraries. Over the course of the past few years, I have watched as book banning has spread like wildfire across our country. And it makes me very angry, to put it mildly, when just about every student at Carmel High School and many in middle school are walking around with one of these and can access just about anything and everything immediately on the internet. People are upset about the content of library books. It does not make sense. I would submit that these book bans are not about protecting our kids from explicit content. Rather, they are about erasing the stories of people in the LGBTQ plus and Black communities and eroding trust in the public school system. All young people deserve to see themselves reflected in books. It's validating for those who may be made fun of or bullied for who they are. Kids are dealing with complex issues, and books are a way for them to grapple with these tough topics. We need to trust individuals to make their own decisions about what their kids can and cannot read. We already have a system in place that allows parents to determine what their children can read and what they don't want them to have access to. So there's no need for one person to restrict access to what my kid and the rest of the students in our school system can or cannot read. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy Black. You are next.
On deck, we have number 6.
On deck is Amal Anthony.
Madam President, Board, my name is Cindy Black. I'm the petitioner in the request to remove this book. And I would like to make the audience aware that in January of '24, after reading the book, All Boys Aren't Blue from cover to cover, I submitted that request for removal. I was informed by the high school media specialist who placed the book on the shelf initially, and the media review committee, that the book would not be removed. The reasons given were that it failed to meet the legal standards of our obscenity laws and was of high literary merit. I must admit, I was confused by the reasoning given because of the book's focus on themes of incest, sodomy, sexual abuse, masturbation, blowjobs, and radical anti-white rhetoric that ran throughout the book. In fact, my research revealed that the book had been removed from 29 different school districts across the country in 8 different states, and that is because of its inappropriate content. However, as I progressed through my appeals, it became clear that the book removal process, by its very design, allowed the employees of the school corporation to sit in judgment of themselves while building a record to buttress their initial decision to select and retain the given book. The lack of independent and impartial review casts a cloud on the removal of this book process. I am an attorney too, and well-schooled in fair and impartial review. So we are here today asking the school board to complete an independent review of this book and to review all materials, not just the materials that were posted with the agenda, but all materials that were submitted in this request. As you consider your decision, I think it's imperative that you hear the author's story in his own words. Words such as, I put some lube on and got him up on his knees, and I began to slide into him from behind. I eased in slowly until I heard his moan. I pulled out of him and kissed him while he masturbated. He asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom on himself. But this was my ass, and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. It was the worst pain I think I ever felt in my life. He then added more lube and tried again, which felt better, but not by much. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure and pain. I was in pain for nearly 3 weeks following that encounter and was too afraid to go to the doctor for help because I would have had to tell them that I had been having anal sex. As you ponder the literary merit of this book, together with its graphic, sexual, and racist contents, I would ask you to consider the words of another American author when speaking to the need for quality literature in our schools. As he so eloquently stated, the man who does not read good books has no advantage over the man who cannot read at all.
Amel Anthony is up.
Number 4 is on deck.
Janine Z. Cheng, you are on deck.
Good evening. My name is Amel Anthony. I have one child at Carmel Middle School and one child at Carmel High School, and reading is my very favorite pastime. I would like to thank the Media Review Committee, who is here this evening, for taking the time to thoughtfully review the book that was put before them by the committee or by the community member. I do appreciate that the Media Review Committee does take the time to do so, even when the challenge comes from a community member who does not have children in our school. Moreover, their response is evidence of the fact that these reviewers are highly trained in both library sciences and education, and I'm grateful that these are the experts who are tasked with choosing what books are available to students in our school libraries. Their decision to retain a book and the opportunity for a challenger to bring that appeal to this board is proof that this review process works. Additionally, removing All Boys Aren't Blue from our high school library would deprive students of the opportunity to engage with diverse perspectives on gender, sexuality, and identity, limiting their understanding of the world and potentially excluding Black and LGBTQ+ students who deserve representation and validation in their educational environment, even if they make up less than 5% of the population. Instead, we should leave the decision of what is appropriate for each child up to their parents, who are best positioned to make those important educational decisions for their children, not for 5,600 other students. Thank you.
Janine, you are up.
Up next is number 10.
Margaret Tomaska, you are on deck.
Hello to the board. Thanks for having me. My name is Dr. Janine Z. Cheng. I am a board-certified pediatrician currently practicing, and I am also the parent of 2 young children in Carmel schools. I just want to thank, again, the Media Review Committee for taking the time to work on this case. And if you would like references for anything I have to say today, please feel free to contact me because I do have those. Did you know that per the CDC, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 20 boys will experience sexual abuse or assault by the time they turn 17? That's likely an underestimate because these are just the cases we know about. It's really difficult to determine how prevalent this maltreatment is because children have to first recognize their victimization and then disclose it. Many people who are sexually abused or assaulted as children don't disclose the event until adulthood. So I don't know all of you, but I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that someone you know and someone you love has been sexually assaulted or abused. And maybe you're sitting there right now and thinking, yes, that was me. So why am I bringing this up? So I have seen this claim that there are parts of All Boys Aren't Blue that are pornography. And I would like to discuss why that statement is wrong. The purpose of pornography is intentional sexual stimulation. This book is a memoir. It does not sell stimulation. Does it describe abuse and trauma and the consequences and results of that abuse and trauma? Yes, it does. And that has value because one of your children might read a passage about abuse and realize that they too have had that experience. A few years ago, I watched a movie. Doesn't matter what the movie was, although I'll happily talk about it with you if you are interested. And watching that movie as an adult made me realize that an experience in my childhood was not, in fact, normal and was, in fact, sexual misconduct. I did not internalize that until I saw my own experience reflected in a fictional movie about a character whose life was completely different than mine. I have also seen this objection that the book is only about the experience of 5% of the population. Most of your children are not queer Black boys, but this particular queer Black boy had an experience that statistically many of our children and many of us have had, and that is important. This book might give one of our children the courage to step forward and say, yes, this happened to me and I need help. Media matters. Reading about the experiences of others matters. By keeping books like this one in the library, you are gifting children the knowledge of the world outside of the four walls of their home, and that will help keep them safe. So I encourage the school board to maintain this book in the library for the education and safety of all of the children of Carmel Clay Schools. Thank you.
Margaret Tomaska, you are up.
And on deck is number 3.
John Scott, you are on deck.
Hi, my name is Margaret Tomaska, and I am also a parent of a student in the school district. I'm here tonight as a very happy parent. I'm grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for all of our teachers. I'm grateful for our librarians. My child is thriving. He's exposed to so many things that I couldn't even begin to do for him. I'd like to recognize the sensible and responsible book review process that we have. Any parent or concerned citizen can raise a concern and have it reviewed about a book. Just like any parent can monitor what their own child is reading and make a decision based on that. I'm here tonight because that has happened. We've had this book review, although we've had not as many details as I would have liked in the public to be able to come here and speak to them. I have not read the book, but my son is in elementary school, not in high school. Based on my experience with all of the elements of our school system, I trust your experience, the experience of our teachers, the experience of our librarians, to make that decision. I have not read the book, but I will turn over that decision to you. That is what we do in a community. We have experts that are trained, understand that taking an out of context excerpt from a book is not reviewing a book. So thank you for your part in this process. We appreciate it, and I know very many other parents that feel the same way. I'm also here tonight to ask some rhetorical questions. I've heard rumors that the book objected to here was never checked out by a single student. I'd encourage everyone in the community to check whether that's true or not for themselves. I'm also really curious as to why this book is being objected to. This particular book, how was it found? Could it be perhaps on a list circulated by an anti-government extremist group, as so labeled by the Southern Poverty Law Center? Could it? Probably. But it's a question for everyone to answer for themselves. Of all the ways to help our kids navigate this complex world that we live in, why would someone decide that removing a book is the way to accomplish that? Thank you.
John, you are up.
On deck, we have number 2.
Kelly Brown, you are on deck.
Madam President, Board. My name is John Scott. I'm a Carmel resident and the father of 2 young boys. I'll be clear, I do not want to be here. But I feel compelled to, due to my convictions and in representation of fellow residents who could not be here tonight. Or even worse, are not aware of this depravity infiltrating what was one of the few safe spaces for our children, our public schools. I'm calling out the majority of this board and the entirety of the CCS Media Review Committee for being disingenuous and intellectually dishonest in believing that this book is appropriate for inclusion in the school library based on the legal guidelines set by the state of Indiana. Here are some facts. 18 is the legal age to consume porn in Indiana. The legal definition of porn includes written media. 93% of males report consuming porn before 18. 62% of females before 18. Addictions and substance abuse, which my family knows, start with an entry point, and books and materials with mature content can be just the thing that triggers such behaviors. The frontal lobe of the brain doesn't fully develop until a person reaches their mid-20s. This book and others like it is like handing a loaded gun to a child incapable of properly processing such content. To allow pornographic content in our schools is not only harmful to our youth, but it also begs the question, why? Why is the Board of Trusted Officials content with, let alone determined, to allow such content to children. This community is watching, and we won't sit idly by. November's coming, and soon enough, there will be 2 seats open. This topic will be top of mind for us, and even beyond that, at the ballot box. As expected of me, Matthew 18:6-7 reads, "If anyone causes one of these little ones to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of offenses, but woe to that man by whom the offense comes." But it doesn't have to be so. I plead with this board and the committee to search yourselves, repent, and turn to faith in Christ. The same goes for the author, George M. Johnson, and the trauma he experienced. You are not only eroding the trust of your community, I am one of only 2 dissenters now, but actively by choice participating in the harm of grooming of children. And yet you act surprised that there are families pulling their kids out of CCS at high rates. If you're unable to make this connection, then you are blinded. To which I will remind you, November is coming, and for those of us who see the world this way, so is God's wrath. Tonight you have heard the true gospel and the need for all of us to turn to faith in Christ. For it's only through him that we can find true peace and joy. It's the only way George will ever feel free and complete too. By approving this book, you may think you're doing good, but I'll be honest with you, you have been deceived. For as Jesus said on the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." May God have mercy on Carmel.
Kelly, you are up.
On deck, we have number 8.
Kristen Kowalewski, you are on deck.
My name is Kelly Brown. Thank you for having us speak tonight. I agree with John Scott. I would like to see this book removed. I believe there are 2 types of people in the world. There are those who are hurting, and there are those who are hurting more. And the author of this book was definitely a wounded person, and I feel for him very much. But where he lost me that this should be in the hands of minor children is where he took more than a dozen pages to be very graphic in describing private sex acts. Once you graphically describe private sex acts, you cross over into the realm of pornography. And for those of you who are not aware, Indiana is an abstinent state, which means by law, we are to teach abstinence. So how can we justify having books with more than 13 pages of explicit, detailed descriptions of sexual acts? How does that help enforce the teaching of abstinence? It doesn't. And to just clarify the false narrative of going around these days that we're banning books, there's no such thing as a banned book. The publisher prints all these books. If they're removed from the school or if they're never brought into the school because the librarian who has discretion about which books she brings in and which ones she doesn't, the books she never brought in have never been banned. The books she brings in, if they get removed, will not be banned. They'll still be at the public library. They'll still be online for purchase. They'll still be at bookstores. They're not banned. They're not going anywhere. They're already still available for public consumption. I love what Corrie ten Boom's father did with this question. Corrie went to him and she said, "Father, what does sex sin mean?" He didn't answer her right away, but finally he did. He got up from the train seat they were sitting on and he pulled down his suitcase from the rack above their heads. He said, "Corrie, will you carry my suitcase for me when we get off the train?" She tugged at it and it was too heavy. She said, "Papa, it's too heavy." He said, "Yes, Corrie, it is too heavy. And a pretty poor father I would be if I asked you to carry it for me." The same thing is with knowledge. Sometimes things are too heavy for you at your age. Can you wait a little while, and when you're older and stronger, you can bear this. For now, trust me to carry it for you. As John said, our frontal lobes are not developed until we're late 20s or 30s. This material, this graphic sexual act material, is not suitable for kids whose brains have not been developed. Thank you.
Kirsten, you are up. On deck,
Number 11.
Jim May.
My name is Kirsten Kowalewski. I am the parent of an 18-year-old who just graduated Carmel High School and a 16-year-old at Carmel High School. And I'm here to ask that the board support the recommendation of the panel to retain this book. I have read All Boys Aren't Blue, and I understand the concern about why there are people who would not want it to be on the shelf. It is a very frank memoir. It does not stint. The description of sexual abuse and assault in this book is a very difficult thing to read. But a secondary school teacher I know has told me these descriptions of sexual assault have helped her students who have been sexually assaulted and or abused by family members to feel like they are not alone. It may seem like less than 5% of the population is not that many kids at Carmel High School. But 5% of the kids at Carmel High School, and I'm not very good at math, but 5% of the kids at Carmel High School is 250 kids. That's hardly 250 black queer kids who've been sexually abused. But there are at least that many kids who know someone who is one of those things: black, queer, sexually abused, bullied, some combination of it. Those kids need to see themselves, and the people they know need to see that the people they know who do fall into those marginalized groups exist, and they deserve to be recognized and even celebrated for their identities. Yeah, this book may be explicit, but it is not prurient. You wouldn't go to this if you wanted to be sexually excited. You would read it because you want to know, you want to learn. And I respectfully ask that you keep it. Thank you.
Jen May, you are up.
And our final speaker, number 5.
On deck is Diane Rogers.
Hi, my name is Jim May. Like most people speaking in favor of the committee's recommendation, I'm a parent of 2 kids at Woodbrook Elementary, very proud of that fact. I'm speaking regarding the book library review recommendation action item on tonight's agenda. And I want to say I appreciate the thought that went into both policy 5522 and the corresponding guidelines that were implemented by this administration. As the board stated when it unanimously passed this policy last December, it both ensures compliance with the state law and it welcomes input from parents and community members to be considered. I also greatly appreciate the transparency of the district in providing the public with the opportunity to review the committee report in advance of this meeting. That was much appreciated. I read All Boys Aren't Blue yesterday afternoon. I hadn't been familiar with it before then, and I fully agree with the committee's findings and recommendation. While 2 of the book's 16 chapters do contain quite candid and graphic descriptions of sexual encounters, both non-consensual and consensual, it's clearly not the focal point of the book to anyone who's read it. Given both the author's obvious talent and the fact that they are highlighting a perspective that rarely, if ever, is given a voice in literature, I'm not sure how one would argue that it lacks literary value. In short, it's one of those books that can help members of a frequently marginalized group feel seen, and it can help the rest of us better understand, empathize with, and care for the people around us. As such, I hope the board accepts the committee's recommendation. As always, thank you for all you guys do for our kids.
Up next is Diane Rogers.
Good afternoon, everyone.
out of Texas, and they reaffirmed to a school board that previously had removed books from the school library that they must put those books back. And the title that is being talked about today was one of those books that it was demanded to be put back. And so the original Miller test and PICO test, which are two court cases that the Supreme Court argues deals with school library books, were settled in the 1970s and 1980s. But since we do have this rampant book censorship issues that are going all throughout the nation the last 2-3 years, the Circuit Court of Appeals as well as state Supreme Courts have been reaffirming the Miller test as well as the PICO test. And the Miller test is the test that outlines how you determine if a book is obscene. By the way, the word pornography is not a legal term. You cannot declare that we must remove a book because it is pornographic, because that's not a legal term. The term is it is obscene or not. And the Miller test put forth by the U.S. Supreme Court is how you determine if a book is obscene or not. One of the items, as many people who spoke today have already mentioned, if a book does have literary merit, and if it does not appeal to the prurient interest, which is sexual excitement, then a book is not considered obscene. The PICO case actually outlines that high school students, which are minors, have the same rights to freedom of speech through library books that adults do. So those are two very, very important cases. And as I mentioned previously, just 2 weeks ago, a circuit court out of Texas reaffirmed the First Amendment and told the school board who previously pulled books to put the books back on the shelf. So I certainly hope that the school board today does not act unconstitutionally. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We always appreciate an active community who shows up to our meetings. Next on our agenda is consent. Tonight, our consent items include the personnel report, claims, and payroll. And as a reminder, we've talked about in previous meetings, our consent agenda is a group of things we are going to approve. They're grouped together for efficient consideration and approval. These are our daily sort of our work items that need to be approved as the business of our meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the consent items for this meeting? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we will now vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Dr. Ostrike, I believe you have some comments.
Yes, good evening and once again. And with the passing of tonight's consent agenda, it was approved that we have 2 new assistant principals at Carmel High School. And so the first is Katie Overbeck, and both of the new assistant principals are on vacation right now, so they couldn't be with us. But Katie Overbeck is Carmel Clay School's 2022 Teacher of the Year, and so we are very excited about that. She's been at Carmel High School for 25 years as an English teacher and also most recently as the IB Diploma Program Coordinator. Katie received her Bachelor of Arts from Purdue University and her Master's in Education in School Administration from the University of West Georgia. As an aside, she was also PTO president of Forestdale Elementary School when her kids went through Forestdale, and we are very pleased to have Mrs. Katie Overbeck in this position. Additionally, our second assistant principal at Carmel High School will be Sade Watson. We are very excited as she brings 7 years of school leadership to Carmel Clay Schools and Carmel High School, most recently as the principal at the KIPP College Prep School as well as an assistant principal. She is a data-driven leader, and she gets lots of results that we're excited that she's going to bring those results to Carmel High School. She communicates on a high level, and we are excited to welcome her to the community. So congratulations and welcome to Sade Watson and Katie Overbeck. Thank you.
Next on our agenda is our action item, the library book review recommendation. Dr. Beresford.
Thank you. Just to go over, first off, the recommendation. IC 2026 5.5-1 requires a process where a parent or guardian of a student enrolled in the school district, whereas in this case, a community member who resides within the geographic boundaries of the district, may submit a request to remove material from a library on the grounds that the material is obscene or harmful to minors as defined by Indiana Criminal Code. The governing body must review and act on that committee's recommendation. As we just prepared for the meeting tonight, the school board asked if I could kind of go over some of the details of that law and also our procedures. So we'll start with the actual law that was mentioned. And if you look through this law, the number one on it is a procedure that each school district must have a catalog of materials available in the school library. We're fortunate here in Carmel Clay Schools that we've had an online catalog with every book that's in every library in the district readily available that can just be searched on our website. So fortunately, we were already in compliance there. Then a procedure that the schools allow a parent or guardian or a community member to challenge that. And then, as you go on down a little bit longer, to do that, they need to submit a request to remove the material from the school library that is obscene as described in those two laws or harmful to minors. So, along with that procedure, then, a response and appeal procedure for each school must be put in place to respond to removal request. And then finally, the response and appeal procedure established under this subsection must require the governing body to review the request at the next public meeting once those processes are completed. And tonight, that is where we are with that process. I'll go to the next slide. I'm not a lawyer, but I have one in the corner if you have questions that are beyond my scope. But as was mentioned by some of the public speakers, the criminal code, and this is our administrative procedures, the definition for obscene matter or performance is that the average person applying contemporary community standards finds the dominant theme of the matter or performance taken as a whole appeals to the period interest in sex. The matter or performance depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct, and the matter or performance taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. And as explained by our legal counsel, that all three of those have to occur in order for it to be considered obscene as a matter of law. You might notice a recurring theme in that. You hear taken as a whole, taken as a whole. That means that you have to look at the entire book, not just pieces. So then you go to matter of performance or harmful to minors. Very similar. It describes, represents any form of nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, sadomasochistic abuse. Considered as a whole, it appears the period interest in sex of minors. It's patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable matter for performance for minors. And number 4, considered as a whole, it lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. And again, all 4 of those guidelines must be met. So we have a couple other slides where you can see the rest of administrative guidelines, and included that is in the center paragraph there. It talks about a form. The way the process works is, and it was described a little bit tonight, that first step in all complaints is at the school level where it goes to the media specialist, and then the media specialist considers that complaint and that request to remove. And then if it doesn't, if the media specialist doesn't agree with removing that and agree that it is obscene or harmful to minors, then it goes to the next step, which is to fill out a form. And I'm going to skip through the rest of the policy so you can kind of see go ahead and go to the next one, a visual way of the way the procedure works with the new law that just went into effect this January. So first off, as the challenge by the patron, you see that in the blue box, and then it's reviewed by the media specialist, and at that point in time, the notice is given to the board that we have a book challenge. Next, the media specialist has to take time and read the book, and then we'll report back to the complainant, And if the media specialist agrees to remove the book, then it is taken off the shelf and then it is reported to the board at the next board meeting. If the media specialist does not remove it and does not agree with that, then it goes to a committee of the school employees when the person making the complaint will fill out that form, and then that will go to a committee. And the committee's outlined in the other piece. It's a lot of different folks from the school. So then the committee, I'll read that book, and so it takes a little bit of a while to get through these processes. It takes a little while. And then at that point, the committee can either agree to remove the book, and then board would announce that at the next meeting, or the committee can recommend to keep the book. And at that point in time, there is an opportunity, once that report is given back to the patron who originally complained, that they can appeal that to the board, which happened in this case. Regardless of whether there is an appeal or not an appeal, the recommendation of the committee still has to go before the board, and you still have to either accept that recommendation or reject it. And as you can see, we are now in the last box there. So we're right sitting on that dark blue box, and then the board's job tonight is to either move to reject the recommendation and grant the original appeal in this case and remove the book, or the board moves to approve the recommendation, deny the appeal, and leaves the book on the shelf. And with that, I will hand it over to you, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beresford. May I have a motion to approve the library book recommendation?
So moved.
May I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Jennifer?
I certainly appreciate this process and how difficult it is to sit in judgment of something. So I did what I would hope many of us would do, as I looked for information on this topic as to why I felt so strongly about it. As someone who has always found solace and resources through reading, I decided to use those skills in this endeavor. So I looked to a study funded by the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute from 2015. It says that before the age of 18, 1 in 4 Hoosier girls has been sexually abused. 1 out of every 6 boys in Indiana has been sexually abused. The median age for reported child abuse is 9 years old. 30 to 40% of these victims are abused by their family. Many of these victims have not recognized that they were victimized, and many of these times it's by their family. And while I certainly can't speak to being a religious minority, I can speak to being part of the 25% of high school girls that was sexually assaulted, being afraid to tell anyone, and actually telling someone and not being believed. Being able to hear someone else's story and to know that I wasn't alone would have been very powerful for me at that time in my life. As we grapple with young people's mental health, I think that it's important that children feel that they are heard and seen in our community. Again, it is very important that parents have the ultimate right to protect their child or limit what they read. And in Carmel, we have that process. Every one of our 39,000 pieces of literature is cataloged, and a parent can speak to the administration or their teacher and make sure that their child is only reading books that they feel are appropriate. So I support the recommendation of the Library Committee. Thank you.
We're going to go down the line. Louise?
Okay. This one's a tough one for me. I find the division in our community on this topic heartbreaking. And I find it heartbreaking maybe for different reasons than some might believe. One being the fact that all of us can't have a varying perspective and come together and have a civil discussion to understand multiple perspectives. I also am deeply heartbroken about the fact that some of us are unable to open our hearts and minds to the experience of someone different than you are. And I too am a Christian, and I know the Savior that I follow. And that Savior was one that understood the experience of others who were different, didn't meet his expectations, but he did it in a way that showed love all the time. And so, as we continue this conversation, I ask you to consider that. I also want to share that, you know, everybody on this dais here, I consider to be a great colleague, and I have, I think, a decent working relationship. And I know that we don't agree, all of us don't agree on this topic, but I appreciate the fact that we're willing to have this conversation and share our varying perspectives in a really respectful and kind manner. And I also recognize that we have differences here on this topic because our values are just a little different. Not bad or good, but they're just a little different, and that's okay. So for me, you know, I found that there was value in understanding the experience and story of the person in the book. However, the graphic nature of the sexual content, I am uneasy with, I'm uncomfortable with. I wouldn't hand that book to my children of teenage age right now. And because of that, I can't support it remaining in the library. Now, I'm not saying those that believe it should stay are bad people. I'm just saying that we have a different perspective, and I honor the fact that we have a varying view. Okay? Thank you.
Katie?
Yeah, thank you. I wrote down what I was going to say because, as one of my favorites says, is even if your voice shakes, you should still speak. So I'm going to read a little. The book All Boys Aren't Blue, a memoir, offers a deeply personal narrative meant for a junior and senior grade level audience. It's not part of our curriculum, and no instructional time is dedicated to it. George M. Johnson bravely addresses challenging topics, explaining throughout the memoir why sharing his story is vital. These experiences, though profound, happened to him as a student, underscoring the real reality that such issues are indeed faced by young people. This was his story. I want to highlight my unwavering support for our highly educated and experienced media specialists and teachers. They are experts in their field and dedicated to our community and our children, and we share the same goal, the well-being and development of students. As a parent of a junior at Carmel High School, I am deeply invested in this discussion. My child is part of the exact age group for which this book is intended. I understand the concerns that some parents might have, but I recognize the value in having access to diverse stories and experiences. Parental partnership in education is not a new concept. It is a well-established practice in our district. We already have mechanisms for parents to have transparency and make choices about their children's exposure to certain materials. Every parent in our district can make the best decision for their family. Our community and our country are built on the foundation of free and independent thought, critical thinking, and the appreciation of diverse perspectives. As a public school, we have the duty to represent and respect all students. It is essential that we trust our educators and our librarians who are committed to providing a balanced and enriching educational environment. The new Indiana law requires us to establish procedures for cataloging library materials and allows parents, guardians, and community members to request the removal of materials deemed obscene or harmful to minors. After thoroughly reading All Boys Aren't Blue, I firmly believe that it does not meet the criteria for obscenity or being harmful to minors as defined by these laws. The book contains, considered as a whole, a serious literary and artistic value, offering important insights and fostering empathy and understanding through the author's personal experiences. I want to acknowledge the concerns of you who are uncomfortable with certain book choices. Your voices are important and your perspective matters. However, it is essential to remember that no single set of values or beliefs should dictate the choices available to everyone. Our educators and librarians are committed to fostering an environment of learning and growth with options that reflect the beautiful diversity of our student body while complying with all laws. I believe in continuing to empower parents to make informed decisions for their own families while ensuring that all voices are heard and all stories can be told. Therefore, I stand firmly in support of the administration's decision to keep All Boys Aren't Blue on our library shelves. By doing so, we honor the principles of education, diversity, and freedom that our community holds dear.
Greg?
Thank you. I have some comments and some questions. If I can go ahead and ask those. Dr. Beresford, as we all know, the new law was enacted and put it into effect January of this year. And it deals with books that, as we saw presented, that have obscene and or harmful content. And we've also made a new provision that allows parents and community members to have the school board review the appeal. What do you believe was the intent of the legislators and the governor who signed this bill?
Greg, I never know what the intent of the lawmakers are who make bills. I'm not even sure they know what their intent is. Obviously, and this will be Mike Beresford talking, not your superintendent, there's a political charge to this. We've seen it across the country. So I'm not sure what, I can't crawl into the mind of anybody. I try not to judge anyone, so I don't know what their specific intention is. But if you read the law, basically they want, the community to have the opportunity to complain and remove a book. And to be real clear, we've always had that. Parents are able to challenge anything in this district all the time. It's a matter of routine. So when that came out, it was like, well, we've got a challenge process. It's not a big issue. And then they wanted to make sure that that the school board made the decision. I think those are the two clearest pieces out of that, because I'm sure if there's any discussion with school people, no one asked me about it, but they would know that most districts have a complaint process, and at some point in time they wanted to shift that so that the board would have to make that decision. So that's the only information I could give you, but I have absolutely no idea in the specifics.
Thank you.
Can I venture a guess on that? I do believe there were probably some districts that did not have any policy of this sort in place. So my guess would be to attempt to make something a little more consistent across the state.
I did have a chance to speak to the sponsor of the bill, and she did tell me that the intent was to have books that have this kind of content definitely reviewed by the community, and that we should really question that content and consider, is it really appropriate for our minor children? And this isn't a public library as much as it is a school library, and the people that have access to are children. And I'm sensitive to the issue of children that might get some benefit, and I'm also sensitive to the children that may be harmed, particularly those that may have already had some harm. And I've spoken to some professionals about that, and there's a lot of concern that this could trigger some behaviors that are detrimental. With that said, the advisory committee that reviewed the book and put a recommendation out there, I had a chance to read that, and I read the book cover to cover. It says that the intended grade level span for this book is 16 plus years, and grade levels 10 through 12. how do we control the access for children that have access to the school library, not just from checking the book out, but from being able to go in the library and take a book off the shelf? But if they don't even meet that age criteria, how do we control that situation?
You asking me that question, Greg, or just?
Yes, yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Please.
Yeah. As I respond to the board when you ask that question and through email, the best defense our kids have to make sure that they're protected is their parents. And with our system that we have, parents can see what the books are in the library, and also they can actually follow and see what books their children check out from the library. And I think one of the public speakers mentioned that very common for parents to work with our media specialists to try to really find interesting books that are of interest to students. So really, that's our front line on it, is that parents have control. They have that choice to determine what their kids check out and what they don't.
Right, but Dr. B, parents cannot keep them from going into the library and sitting down and reading it, right? They can manage whether or not they can check it out. So a kid could go in there every day and read it. Not that I want to keep children from having access to stuff, but just the graphic nature and not being able to ensure. And where did you hear grades 10 through 12?
Yes.
Where did you get that information?
It was from the advisory committee, our advisory committee.
So
I could add some clarity to that. What that rating comes from, I asked this question because you asked that question. That rating comes from publishers or from book reviewers, and it's used to assist media specialists as to where's the proper placement for a book. In our library, it's in the high school selection, and it's in the nonfiction, and because it's a memoir. And then, like at the public library, it's placed in the high school section there. So that age range is what's been given out by the publisher or also by reviewers, I guess. Is that right, librarians in the house? I think I said that appropriately?
Yeah, while we're on the topic of ratings, we're all familiar with movie ratings, and we don't have a well-implemented, I'll put it that way, method for seeing the ratings on books. In other words, if a parent was looking at what their child has checked out, there's nothing that tells them anything about the book other than a brief abstract. So, but there is, we're familiar with an organization called or a website called booklooks.org, and they have such a rating system for books, and I thought it was pretty interesting. It talks about, it addresses the appropriateness of a book for a child or a young adult, and it's a quick guide for busy parents. And it talks about the concept of the law that you pointed out, that when you take a look at a book at its whole, or the dominant theme, and that's kind of this point that is often used to say, we have a useful story, we have an important story to be told here. And I'm not anyway, complaining about that. My complaint is there's 7 elements to this law that's been on books for some time, actually, the definition of obscene, and the other one that has 3 elements, and the definition of harmful to minors. Remember, keep that in your mind, it's harmful to minors. There's 4 elements. This book, I don't think anybody would argue, contains 3 of those elements of the law that are brought to our attention. So this book and other books in our libraries have obscene content and materials that are harmful to minors. So they have that. What we're talking about is there's a story here to be told that could help some children, and it may be in conflict with other people in the community. And to Louise's point, that's the way we are. We don't all see things the same way. So back to this rating system, what I thought was interesting is it has a scale of 0 to 5. 0 is not a problem at all. And then 5 is the extreme. So this book was rated.
What ratings? Where is this?
It's called, I'm sorry, thanks, booklooks.org. I think we all received a copy of that.
That was what was submitted by the complainant, was those printouts were from that website, I believe.
Okay, so there's this, this website called booklooks.org, and this one's rated number 4, which is explicit sexual nudity. I'm going to choose not to read all the detail because I just have a struggle with it, but it does say obscene references to sexual activities. I'm not going to go there. So it's rated 4, and when you go to the first page where it has like a summary of the book, there's a content warning on the front page that says, among other things, is if you are under the age of 18, please exit now. And it's also rated not for minors. So a minor to me would be 17 and under. So here is a rating system that, as a kind of a contrary, or not contrary, but another book that they rated, that's been controversial. This isn't a new issue, is it? I mean, rating books and censoring books. And
I would
let
just
me finish,
wonder,
Jennifer,
is
please.
this, well, I'm just asking
Okay.
you a question. Is this considered a subjective site for their rating system? Or is it an objective organization that has been vetted and listed to be objective?
They have very specific rules for making their ratings, so I will leave it at that. I think it's objective. They talk about a book, a controversial book over the years called To Kill a Mockingbird, and it has a lot of content that has been concerned before about maybe we should remove that book from the library. So that book was rated for teen guidance, which is a rating number 2. So this book has content, and we heard some of it tonight. I'm not going to repeat any of it. It has this content. So I think we need to ask ourselves, where do we draw the line? If a book has a story that we feel has some value, does that mean that we can put anything else in that book? Can a publisher put anything else in that book and we accept it just because it has a story? I think we need to ask ourselves that, and there's a line to be drawn. And I have one more question here for Dr. Beresford. Is back in, I think it was the summer of 2021, going into early 2022, a similar issue came up. There was there wasn't a formal process for review, but some books were identified, and there was, I think Dr. Beresford, you were quoted as saying that there was a number of the books had, let's see, where is that? After evaluating the books, you felt that the books were completely inappropriate for students and not in line with our values for here at Carmel Books. And some of those books you actually removed, and I really appreciated that you took a personal interest in it and went through them and found that, yes, some of those books were in the elementary school, some were in the middle, and some were in the high school, and you took some decisive action and said, and removed some of those books and moved some of those books. And there was a section that was, some of them were moved to that required parent access. I was talking to some administrators, people at Westfield, Washington School District, just north of us here. And their solution to this problem, which I think when I listen to us discuss this issue, I hear a lot of passionate discussion of both sides of the issue. I hear both sides of the issue. I respect both sides of the issue. And no matter how we vote, if we vote to keep the book or vote to not keep the book, a large segment of our community is not happy. So we've given ourselves a process to implement the law, much like the simplicity that we see in this chart here, that we can take a very legalistic review of the law that says, as long as it has a valid storyline or a useful storyline, we can put anything in the book that's sexually, any kind of level of sexual detail. That's one way to interpret this. Another way to interpret it is we have to draw a line somewhere. There's a rating system that says this isn't even appropriate for minors. Our own rating system says it's not valid for children 16 or 15 and under, and yet this is in the high school, and we have no way to really regulate who checks that out or what they might be doing, not even checking it out. So my thinking is that we look at something like what other school districts are doing, even like in Westfield, where they have said, okay, there's books that are on this line of demarcation that, you know, some are wanted in and some don't. So rather than make one segment of our population not happy and the other happy, they have taken those books and moved them to a spot that requires parental approval to remove those books. And I propose that we look at something like that, where we will be spending a lot of board meetings reviewing books and having a lot of controversy in it. And I think school boards are intended to look at laws. We have to obey the laws, but it doesn't mean we can't apply values that are that support a broad part of the population. And I think we need to try to appease as many people as we can with our solution. I don't think we have a good solution. I don't think we have a good procedure and process, and I think we just ought to take some time and look at it and try to get the majority of our population happy.
Can I just ask, I just had a question on, I didn't get to ask it before, Greg, on the professionals you said you, what part were you talking about? You said you spoke to the professionals.
Yeah,
Who-
and I'll address, there's a study, National Institute of Health, the NIH, reviewed 19 studies that dealt with the harm of pornographic material to minors. And they looked at 19 studies, and it's exhaustive, and I'll just summarize that. Obviously, it's a big warning. We need to be very careful in what we do with that. Yes, I know phones have it, and we need to be very careful in our society. It's even more difficult. But in our school libraries, we have control on that, and these books are available widely. This book can go across the street from the high school, and it's in the public library. There's 4 copies. It's readily available. So if we feel we need to get it, we're not taking it away from society. We're just saying it's not in a public school library. Or if we want to have it in the public school library in the catalog, we should have a method that allows parents to have better controls for their children. So NIH would be an answer to that.
Thank you. I was thinking mental health professionals or something. Somebody else was what you were thinking. I don't have a whole lot to say on this, but I think my view as a board member is a little bit maybe different. I try to be pretty objective anytime I vote or with anything that's brought before me, because that's my job. And so I'm really relying on looking at the law and looking at the Indiana Criminal Code, and relying on the professionals that have already made their decisions.
Could I add one more comment?
Sure.
Along those lines, you just made me think of it, it was addressed, I think, by one of the speakers tonight that there is Indiana code that clearly says we are a state that teaches abstinence is the best way to avoid unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases. So that's what academically we're required to teach. And I would like to believe that our choice of books in the library are going to support those kinds of things. And
I do hear you on that. But this is not a curriculum material. So I hear what you're saying.
understand.
If this were a curricular material, I think, we're not there. But this is a library material, not a curricular material.
Correct. And Romy, the classics may not speak in language that is modern day, but we read Romeo and Juliet, which is about a 13-year-old who was sexually assaulted by an older person and then they commit suicide. I mean, books in the Bible, we may not even recognize the language that some of the books that we read are using to depict sexual activity because it's not modern language. But this is not something that's new. And these are, again, this is not a curricular book, and everyone can control what is being taken out by their children. So again, I recommend that we take the recommendation.
I do see and hear both Greg and Louise, that I think that is something that we as a board can discuss tweaking policies. That's our job. And if that's something that we want to talk about, and I see it, I hear your concerns with the parents not having full access.
Yeah, thank you. Can I make a motion that we put on a future agenda item that we look at a better way to implement this law that could appease a great majority of our community?
Are you wanting a motion, or are you wanting to take a look again at that policy, is what you're
That's a
wanting to?
motion, because it gets into procedures. Somehow, if we want to give an assignment to I'm not sure, I'm not that strong on Robert's Rules of
Yeah.
Order. I'm just saying, I'd like to see us take a look at how can we,
Yeah, that's what I was, we already had a motion with a second.
right.
Um,
Okay, so maybe we should go ahead and do the vote and then
Okay,
come back to it?
and then you can make your motion
Okay.
again.
Yeah, I think I would like for us to have some kind of additional conversation because I believe there is a middle of the road that we should be able to reach on this kind of topic. And I don't know what that is, but I think, I don't know if the answer is for us to read every single book that someone has a problem with, but is it understanding what the boundaries are of things that we're aligned as a team are appropriate for a high school, middle school, whatever, versus the public library. Maybe there's just a little more specificity we can put on the policy to just ensure we're aligned as a team. Because I don't think we're 100% like polar opposite, but I just wonder if there's something we can do.
No, that is definitely part of our job, is to ensure that policies meet what is needed of the school system. Okay, if we are all ready with done with the discussion, we will now take a vote. All in favor of approving the library book review recommendations signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries 3-2. Next on our agenda is the workshop topic, Mental Health Prepare.
He wants to do his motion.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Greg. Back to Greg's motion. Go ahead and just say the same motion again.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we put on a future agenda to discuss how we might look at procedures that could be changed or policies that would help us address and appease a greater majority of the community.
I will second that motion. Any discussion?
Yes, who's responsible for tracking us accomplishing this motion? Because I just want to make sure it doesn't fall through the cracks. Okay, thank you.
Jennifer, did you have?
Well, I just have, with the wording, appease the majority of the community, because I think we did hear from a majority of people today who had one view. So I want to be careful with the motion and its wording by saying that maybe we're not following the majority of our community. Okay, so I'm sorry. That's what Greg said.
I'm saying policy or procedure. I don't know the solution. I don't want to propose a solution here. I just think we need to have
the current process for policy is you have two policy liaisons, and then either the board or the administration will bring policies to that group. Most of ours come from, because new laws go into place, and we have to have policy procedures, just like we did tonight. So that's the process of it. So I guess your question would be, I think in your original motion, you said you wanted it to be a discussion in a board meeting. Is that correct?
I'm recommending that the board discuss how we might go about resolving this problem. Maybe not the specifics of procedures, but are we going to task our policy people? Are we going to have a board committee? Or I don't know. I haven't given that a whole lot of thought. I'm just proposing we publicly discuss that. We want to take a look at it, and we discuss how we might want to begin the process.
I think we can bring the policy back up for board discussion, so I think we could do that. One thing I do want to make sure it's very clear is we are bound by state law. So what our policy states today is pretty much a copy and paste from state law, so we are not allowed to change what it says. We have to follow the procedure, we have to follow the process for how it's outlined. We can discuss more if we would like to add additions perhaps, but this is something I think that we're going to have to discuss not only with us as a board, but also our legal counsel in regards to what we as a board are and are not able to do regarding this. But I do think that we can bring it up again for another discussion at a future board meeting. So maybe the motion is to bring it up for discussion at a future board meeting.
Yeah.
Does that amendable? Okay. Our current board policy regarding this process, yeah.
And I don't know if you can add on to somebody's motion, but I would like to discuss the policy and the procedure, so I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, the steps that are followed. Okay.
In a second.
Hey, Dr. B, can you make it clear for folks how we screen for books coming into the library? How are books selected?
That would be best done by a media specialist, but
Okay.
the curation of a library is done by our media specialists every year. They consult different lists, different awards. They also try to, it's all outlined in the policy, actually, if you look through that. And I think I sent a copy of that to you. That might be the best place to look to see how that is curated and kind of what the different categories that they look for.
Okay, yeah. I just
They
wanna
do
make
okay
sure-
there, librarians?
Yeah, I just want to
Media
make sure the
specialists?
public knows.
I sent that to you guys this week. the
Yes, I want to make
policy.
sure the public knows because they don't have access to those emails.
Do you want me to read that out loud?
The process?
Do you want me to read the collection, or should I reference the
I
specific?
just want to kind of the process,
So-
how we end up with books in our libraries, because someone asked me the other day.
Yeah, and the specific, again, it was up on the board previously. This is specific, it's 5522 is a specific policy.
Can we, yes, and I don't know that we have time to read through a policy here, but I think it'd be beneficial for the public to know how we land books in our libraries. So if we don't know it today, can we, on the day that we do go through the policy, share the procedure for book selection?
We do know it today if you want to look it up and we could read it.
Is it long?
I
It's-
have it,
it's
if you
pretty
would like
long.
me to read
Is
it.
it long?
It is pretty long, but,
It's a little over a page.
okay, I'll just read it.
Okay.
For everyone's
We're
viewing
going to read it
pleasure.
now?
Okay. The school libraries housed within the school corporation support and enrich the curriculum, students' personal interests, and learning. The goal of Carmel Clay School's library and media centers is to provide a wide range of materials on all levels of difficulty with diversity of appeal and the presentation of different points of view. The development, selection, and maintenance of the library media collection at each school is the responsibility of the school media specialist. The media specialist at each school examines educational reviews and professional resources to help guide the selection process. Media specialists use the following criteria to select items for the library collection: support for the general educational goals and teaching strategies of CCS, support for the adopted Indiana academic standards, support for the course objectives and program of studies, relevance and lasting literary value, reputation and qualifications of the author, creator, or publisher, clarity, accuracy, and logic of presentation, value of the resource in relation to its cost, suitability of physical format, suitability of subject, content, and style for the intended audience, needs of an individual school program based on requests from administrators and teachers, needs of individual students based on requests by teachers or students, representation of various viewpoints on controversial subjects with the goal of providing a balanced collection, various formats in an effort to incorporate emerging technologies and accessibility.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need to vote on Greg's motion, correct? Are we done with the discussion? Yes, all right. We are now going to take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries 3-2. Okay. Now, next on our agenda is the workshop topic, Mental Health Prepare, Dr. Ostrike.
President Coquet, I would recommend we may take maybe a minute or two break. Some of the members who are presenting had to step out for a moment during the meeting today, and they'll be back very
Okay,
shortly.
that sounds great. We will just take a minute.
Thank you.
First, that would have been fun. Good to go.
Oh, we're ready to go?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Good to go. Thank you so much. Thank you
Well,
for your patience.
Yeah, thank you very much, President Coquet, members of the board, Dr. Beresford. Very pleased to have with us Mrs. Brooke Lawson, our Director of Mental Health this evening, and some of our phenomenal social workers and counselors here tonight to provide a mental health update in the district. And along with our social workers and counselors who are here tonight, I also want to do a shout out to those who are also at home, who work so closely with our families, with our parents, with our students, and provide supports when needed in the families throughout Carmel Clay schools. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Brooke Lawson. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ostrike. Good evening, members of the board and administration. I'm very excited to be here tonight and share information with you about the mental health supports that we provide here in Carmel Clay schools. So whenever I share information about mental health in Carmel Clay schools, I really love to show this graphic because there are things that we do in our schools for all students that support positive mental health, which enhances academics. And we call those Tier 2 supports for students. And I've listed quite a few of those things, and I'll talk a little bit more throughout the presentation. Our social workers and counselors will also share how they do those things. And then there are some students in our district that's just not enough. And there are additional supports that we need to provide to them, and we call those Tier 2 supports. And I'm excited for some of our counselors and social workers to share a little bit about what some of that might look like in our schools. And we have some amazing data as well to share with you about the supports provided this school year. And then there are times that Tier 2 support is not enough, and we still have a student that is struggling and needs some additional support, and we call those Tier 3 supports. And those are targeted supports that we provide to students. And I'll also talk a little bit about those as well. One thing that I wanted to mention was this past school year, along with all the other Hamilton County school districts, we received a grant to support students who are struggling with substance use issues. And we were able to provide a very specialized mental health support to high school students throughout Hamilton County. 26 students received an intensive substance use support group. I'm not aware of any type of support group like this in the area, but we know that students are using substances and we need to help them get the support that they need. And so our social workers at the high school were able to help many Carmel Clay students get some additional support, and some of their testimonies that they shared were amazing. We had one student who never left the group. It was a 4-week group, but he found it so beneficial that he continued to go until the end of this month, which I think is a testament to the work that was done. So we will elaborate on many of these different bullets throughout the presentation, but I just felt like it was very important to share with you that there are things that we do to support the mental health of students all throughout the school district. One of those things is our Skills for Success work, and I know the previous mental health coordinator shared quite a bit about that work right before she left, and we continue that work throughout the district. You'll see some examples of some of the work and some of the data that we'll be sharing, and we're continuing to work to kind of make sure that all throughout the district that work looks similar at different levels, and so that is work that will continue. If you're interested in learning more, I've linked the website. There's a great video about each of those skills, what those definitions are, and then also some more information. So Something I'm extremely proud of this school year was some work that I did alongside our school counselors and school social workers of really just defining their roles so that people within our community, parents, community members, have an understanding of the work that they do day in and day out with our students. And so I'm not going to read you this definition. Each of them at the levels looks different because their roles look different. And in Carmel Clay schools, at our elementary level, we have at least one school social worker that supports students in our schools. And I've invited one of our school social workers to come and join me to share just a typical day in the life of an elementary school social worker. So Echo Chappelle Edney is our school social worker at Cherry Tree Elementary, and she's going to give you just a quick synopsis of what a day in her life looks like.
All right, good evening, everybody. I've been at Cherry Tree since November of 2011 as a school social worker. And when Brooke reached out to me to ask about a typical day in the life, one way to get a great laugh out of a social worker, especially an elementary school social worker, is to ask for a typical day. There's no typical day. It's a great job if you're someone who likes a lot of variety, occasional excitement. And when I accepted this job, I was coming from the emergency room at Wishard as a crisis clinician there, and had also had experience as a therapist in IPS before that. I thought it was going to be a lot of rainbows and butterflies and sunshine, and some days it absolutely is. And some days it's really challenging, but it's never the same day twice, and I really appreciate that about my job. So I attempted to make a graphic illustrating what may be a typical day, with the understanding that, as everybody up here knows, sometimes those days can be completely derailed by a student crisis. I think what makes the elementary school social worker role unique and, in my opinion, incredibly beautiful is that we don't have a student services team necessarily in the elementary school level. At my school, it's myself, it's my administration, so my principal, my assistant principal, and then big high five to Carmel Clay Schools for their amazing partnership with Carmel Police Department. I work super closely with my SRO. We have a wonderful SRO at our school. Shout out to Molly Gregory, she's great. I never feel like I have to execute my job alone. And so even though I may be the lone school social worker there for 21 kids, I'm never having to face a day by myself and make decisions alone. And I feel very proud of the relationships with parents that I've been able to develop along the way, and with our students, of course, first and foremost. So for me, I love to start my day greeting kids coming off the bus. Sometimes that in and of itself, that little 5-minute period, that's going to steer my morning in a whole different direction. Sometimes we've got tears, sometimes we've got a student disagreement. And at the elementary school level, I think what we really try to focus on is just teaching kids those basic skills to be good human beings, to care for themselves, to be passionate learners, to just want to show up every day. I feel like if we've got kids who want to walk through the halls of Cherry Tree every day, if we want to get out of bed and come to school at 7:35 in the morning, it's very early, then we're doing great. And I feel like for the most part, you know, we get those smiles in the morning, we get the fist bumps, the high fives. And so that's honestly, sometimes if you ever want to feel inspired, come to an elementary, well, I don't know what the safety rules all around all of that, but if you can, watching a wave of 700 plus kids walk through the doors of a school smiling every day is really powerful, and I really enjoy that part of my job. The future is bright. And my job also involves a lot of tier 3 work. We do some all-school family meetings where we're teaching how to calm yourself down with just some simple breathing exercises. Everybody can use that. Sometimes I'm running small groups. I may be seeing a student for working through a new, fresh parental separation. I PAR our case conferences at the elementary school level, so if you have a student who has an IEP, I'm going to be there too as part of the team, documenting what we talk about and hopefully providing some valuable perspective with that. Sometimes we are working through DCS reports. It might be a student saying, hey, I had a kiddo show up with a black eye today, and they're very tearful and they don't want to, I just checked in with them and they're really not wanting to talk about that. That can take my day in a different direction, but it's something that I'm confident in handling, and I feel we do a really good job of sensitively handling those situations and making sure kids are safe. I hold lunch bunches. There's a dual purpose there. I get to eat lunch, and I get to meet with kids, and there's just a unique relationship that can develop over food. We know that as adults, we love eating with our family members. It's very kind of just a special kind of way to bond with students. I will meet with kids individually as needed and as I can. I also write our 504s. I'm a 504 case manager, so I'm doing that. Returning parent emails, as quickly as I can. Parent phone calls as quickly as I can. And a lot of consultation with teachers, too, about challenging situations. And I just try to make sure, really, my door is open. And I think that sometimes means my day goes off course a little bit, but it also means I'm building closer relationships with our teachers. I'm available for students, and then obviously closer relationships with our students as well. And I think that's a decent synopsis of what we can do during the elementary school day.
Thank you. So in alignment with our strategic plan, I wanted to make sure that I shared some, sorry, I'm not as tall as Echo, some data with you. And so our amazing elementary school social workers shared a synopsis, I pressed a button, sorry. A synopsis of the work that they've done with students this school year. So the top is just really a snapshot of our elementary schools. And then the bottom is the important work that I feel like is important to highlight. So this school year, our elementary school social workers provided 3,073 individual contacts with students. So that could be anything from my best friend and I are having a conflict and we need help working through it. Echo mentioned maybe a student's parents are separating, maybe there's been a death in the family, all kinds of individual supports. Our elementary school social workers spend a lot of time in the classroom teaching different lessons, and you'll see in this pie chart over here the focus of those lessons. So the two largest are body safety and anti-bullying, which are state-mandated lessons that must be taught to every student in the school district. And our school social workers help implement an evidence-based curriculum that they teach in our classrooms. And then there's lots of different focus areas as well. A lot of times those decisions are made by teacher request. Many of our social workers focus on those skills for success work, so they make sure to teach those in every class or help support a teacher in teaching those as well. So that's kind of the focus area of those lessons. They completed 91 total school-wide activities, which ranges from things like our Culture of Care Week, College and Career Readiness Week, lots of different whole school activities, the whole school family meetings like Echo was sharing. This number here I think is so impressive. They ran 868 small groups with students at the elementary level this year, and you'll see the focus of those small groups over here in this chart. The most was on emotion regulation, so learning how to manage different types of emotion, whether that's anger management, or maybe I'm a student who worries a lot, and I need to learn some strategies on worrying, all the way down to different types of things like some of our social workers do middle school transition groups for students who are feeling uneasy about going to middle school. So those are the different topic areas. Obviously, some of our social workers will do 5 emotion regulation groups, and so they don't necessarily line up with this 868 number, but that's why. They work a lot with our parents as well, so they logged 1,097 parent contacts this school year, did a lot of support and training with our staff members, and then lastly, they are a huge resource for our students and families and connect them with all kinds of different referrals. So they almost made 1,000 referrals for our elementary students this school year, and those top referrals are listed right here in the middle. I'll talk a little bit about our partnership with Ascension St. Vincent later in the presentation, but we are so lucky to have Carmel Youth Assistants in our community to provide needed supports to students and families. We work with Merciful Help right now. They're providing summer meals to our students who are experiencing food insecurity. Another amazing thing that we have in Carmel is our Carmel High School student mentors. So students from Carmel High School come over and our school social workers pair them with a positive high school student to spend some time with all school year. So that's another great support that is provided at the elementary level. All right, so at our middle schools, we have 2 school social workers and 2 school counselors. And again, we have these definitions up here, but it's way better to get to hear from those people that do the work every single day. And like I mentioned, we'll be putting this on the website for families. So this is our social worker definition, which looks a little different than our elementary one because their role looks a little different, and our middle school counselor. But I have Susan Shad, who is the counselor at Creekside Middle School, and Connie Peregrine, who is our school social worker at Carmel Middle School, here to share quickly how they work together to support students, and then a little bit about how they work individually.
Hello. First, I want to say how grateful I am to be a social worker in Carmel Clay Schools. Every day is an adventure, let me say, at Carmel Middle School. The students, the teachers, the parents are a joy to work with, and I'm very grateful.
The
to be
middle
able to
school
do that.
version of Echoes.
Yes.
where
Yes.
no day is really the same.
No, absolutely no day is the same. And, you know, Brooke is going to show you all of our data on the next slide from middle school, but what does that mean? What does it mean that I work on attendance at school? What that means on a daily basis, every day I look at the attendance list after the attendance secretary has put it out. I look for patterns. I look to see who's not coming to school. I look to see who's unverified. If it's a student I'm working with or I know that is struggling and there's a family crisis going on, I'm immediately calling the secretary. Let me know if you verified the student. If you don't, I want to make a home visit. I want to go with the resource officer out and check on this family. We do that every single day.
And you know, I think in the mornings, we're all, I know at Clay, Carmel, Creekside, we're always there in like the front where everybody's sort of coming in. And it's funny because whenever Echo mentioned, like, sometimes something will happen and like, oh my gosh, my day just kind of took a swerve. Sometimes that's how it feels, you know, when people will come in and, you know, you could just see that. Whenever Brooke had the skills for success slide up at the beginning and all those things, you know, that we're really trying to, you know, help people build all through K through 12. Those are the things that everyone struggles with. Those are the things that we still struggle with as adults, you know, and we're trying to just strengthen those, really K through 12. We're really proud of, we took a strong look this year at some vertical alignment from K through 12 as far as like things like college and career, because we were, to tell you the complete truth, we were sort of a little jealous of all the cool things that the high school had. And we thought, oh, we're always like trying to catch up. But now we feel so much better that we really have a good plan about that. And we're feeling super solid on those things.
And one of the things, you know, a little different than what Echo talked about, in the middle school, there is a whole team of us. And the collaboration between the social workers, the counselors, the administration, the teachers, we meet daily, weekly. We have a teacher out here from Carmel Middle. We meet every 2 weeks and we talk about kids. We talk about what needs to happen, what's going on with our students. We work so closely with the resource officers.
Yes.
All of that is such a unique, and there's not one week that doesn't go by that I'm not calling Creekside, or I'm not calling Clay, or I'm not calling the elementary to say, hey, tell me more about this family. Tell me more about this student. How did you work? What supports did you put in place? Or, you know, collaborating with the high school. We're sending you these kids. Let's talk about them. That is a really unique part of our role as well.
Sometimes it can look almost like on certain days, it can look like the four of us, the 2 social workers and 2 counselors, are almost doing the same thing. And you'd be like, wait, what's going on, you know? But then other days when it's not really that way, in a nutshell, the 2 counselors are a little bit more academic focused, a little bit more with grades, and then the tier 3 with the 504s and sort of starting that special ed ball rolling sometimes when it's necessary. We do some of that, and then our social workers are just huge in what they do and how they're supporting those skills for success.
Right. And some of the other things you might not know about Carmel Middle School, especially in the social worker's role, we have food pantries in our building that we work with the PTO on, and we send food home weekly with 30 to 35 students every week. We do a giving tree program for Christmas in our building for our own families, that the families who go to our school contribute to. And last year, I think we gave Christmas to 38 families just through our school building. So those are just some daily things that we do at the middle school level.
Thank you for letting us be here.
Yes, thank you.
I definitely think the role of teaming and having 2 social workers and 2 counselors at our middle school is so important for our students and their success, and they work so well together as teams. And so, like they both mentioned, they do have little different roles and a little different training as well. So social workers are more trained in the mental health supports and that social emotional support, and you'll actually see that reflected in this data. And then our school counselors, you'll see it reflected in their data where they are a little more academically focused. So adolescents aren't real big fans of class lessons, although they will participate. And they're not necessarily huge fans of groups and talking about themselves with a bunch of other people. They prefer the more one-on-one support. And so our school social workers at the middle school level almost provided 3,000 individual student contacts this school year. They did a total of 752 class lessons, which would the topic areas are over here. So you'll see body safety and anti-bullying, which is a part, again, of that mandated curriculum, but also some other things as well. That middle one is school transitions. And then they did 20 different whole school activities, 15 small groups, which you'll see the focus of those small groups on the left. They made a total of 2,082 parent contacts, which is a lot of work with parents. They work hand in hand with our parents. Did a lot of staff training, and then connected almost 300 students with outside supports, which is listed here in the middle. And they also do quite a few home visits, and Connie shared that, just checking in on students, oftentimes with our school resource officers to make sure that they're okay. Here is the data for our school counselors. So I did add the number of IEPs and 504s at our middle school level there because they are primarily the ones who are helping support that work. They had a total of 3,433 individual student contacts, which oftentimes includes some of that academic advising. So talking about scheduling, talking about academics. And then I'll quickly just touch on new student enrollment. So this school year, we had 364 new students enroll in our middle schools, which is a pretty large number. And that takes a lot of work from our school counselors. They do a lot of new student work to make sure that that transition is smooth for students who have moved here and really supporting them as well. And so those class lesson topics are up here. Susan mentioned the vertical alignment, which is amazing at our middle schools because Carmel High School has a lot to offer when it comes to all of the different different pathways. And so there was some conversation with the high school counselors and the middle school counselors on the importance of making sure that the first time kids hear about that isn't like the end of their 8th grade year when they're about to become a freshman and they're so overwhelmed. And so all of our students in the district are receiving the same lessons at the middle school because that team worked really hard together to make sure of that. So that's really exciting and awesome work. So lastly, we have 4 school social workers at our high school. One that covers the 9th grade center and works with our 9th grade counselors and team. And then 3 that work with our 10 through 12 students. And so I have Sarah Canope with me, and Carrie Schwartz. Sarah's one of our school social workers that works with the 10 through 12 side, and Carrie is one of our school counselors that works in our freshman center. And so I'm going to let them talk a little bit. These are their definitions that the team created, and I'll let them share briefly a day in their life.
Thanks for having us. Public speaking is not my favorite thing, but I said yes when Brooke asked this. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of how our teams work just a little bit before we go into our day-to-day. Like Brooke said, there are 4 social workers and 11 counselors. And so on the freshman side, I'll let Carrie talk a little bit more about that. There's 4 counselors and 1 devoted social worker. So we do a lot of teamwork. On the 10 through 12 side, there are 3 social workers, and we are divided, and we work with specific counselors to provide
specific services for that part of the alphabet so that we make sure that every student gets the services that they need. As far as just like my day-to-day, you've heard a lot of things that it doesn't get too dissimilar once you get to the high school, where what we do most though is individual work. You see a lot of students that struggle with anxiety or depression, grief and loss. And so what our roles are, what we believe our roles are, is to just kind of remove barriers to help these students be the most successful they can be in our building. And so we just work on a day-to-day, whether that's meeting with a student individually, talking to parents, getting parents connected to resources, you know, whether it's therapy outside of school, St. Vincent inside of school, food insecurities. One of our former PTO backpack program leaders is here. We've done that for I don't even know how many years. So just trying to make sure we meet the barriers and try to remove them as much as possible. Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie. It has been one of the greatest honors of my life to be in Carmel Clay Schools for the last 18 years, for 9 years as a middle school counselor, and then for the past 9 years as a high school counselor. I've had many of the people who are still in this room, thank you for staying. I've had many of your children, and that has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. So to tell you a little bit about our day-to-day, my colleagues have already done a beautiful job of outlining really a lot of the day-to-day tasks. However, we spend a lot of time in triage as school counselors, just like they're saying, kids come in crying or whatever. But what we find is that a lot of students who seek our care get the most support, but there are still kids out there who need our support that may not come to us and seek us out. So I'm really proud of my 15 colleagues who have caseloads at the high school. We have made it our mission to every week, we run a complete exhaustive list of our students who may be showing signs of academic distress. And we know that if kids are not okay, they're probably not performing academically. So we are being more intentional about looking at their attendance, their nurse visits, and their grades, primarily D's and F's. And we are being intentional about meeting with those students every week. And so I have about 340 students on my caseload right now, and my goal is to meet with 4 to 6 students every day who are experiencing academic distress. And while that may sound like a lot, I promise you there are at least that many students who are experiencing some form of academic distress. So we talk to them about the resources within our building that we can connect them to, such as our NHS tutors or other tutors within the community. We do a lot of things to try to help them learn about executive skills, executive functioning, things like organization, time management, prioritizing, those things that a lot of kids maybe aren't born innately with, but they're required to play school well. So we're having these amazing conversations, but then we're also connecting that to their parents. We're trying to get home involved as much as we can. And you think a lot of these kids are about to become adults, but we still need parental support just as much as they might down at our elementaries. And so that has been something our team has worked really hard on this year that I'm so proud of them. Then we use that data to determine who needs to go before our multidisciplinary team. So the M team, as we lovingly call it, they are the ones who are kind of the gatekeepers for 504s and IEPs and other forms of intervention that we as school counselors can't just make unilateral decisions about. And so we use that data to say, hey, I've met with this